Hello everyone, welcome back. And today we are doing our educational video for this month, and it's going to be on sleep. Now, you might be thinking, okay, it's Halloween season. Why are we doing one on sleep? One of, well, one of my favorite Halloween movies is A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I thought, I can somehow bring this into doing it on sleep and nightmares and stuff like that. So I'm like, I can work with that. And plus, I've always kind of been interested in like the sleep cycle and whatnot. So I'm like, this would be a perfect time to go ahead and do it. So first of all, what is sleep? We all do it. I'm sure we all kind of know what it is, but it is a state of reduced mental and physical activity. So you're not doing as much, you're not thinking about much, and in which consciousness is altered and certain sensory activities is inhibited. So you're just not going to be thinking about much, you're not going to be moving, you're not going to be doing anything like that. And during sleep, there is a decrease in muscle activity and interactions with the surrounding environment. Like I said, you're not really moving or anything like that. Now, there are some things that we're going to go over that kind of go against this. Some like, oh yeah, you kind of move, like sleepwalking and stuff like that. We'll go over that too. So, I mean, it's not like a definite, like, oh, you don't move at all. It's more of most people don't. So, what is the sleep cycle? It is sometimes called the ultradian sleep cycle, the sleep dream cycle, or the REM in REM or REM in REM cycle. It's an oscillation between slow wave and REM phases of sleep, which we will go over both of those to give you a little bit more idea what they are. So, in humans, this cycle takes around 70 to 110 minutes to go through one cycle. And in order to determine in which stage of sleep a sleep subject is in, devices are used for this for differentiation. So the EMG or electromyography is a crucial method to distinguish between sleep phases. For example, a decrease in muscle tone is in general a characteristic of the transition from wake to sleep. So, during REM sleep, there is a state of paralysis in your muscles, resulting in an absence of signals to the EMG. So, during that time, the EMG would not be getting anything at all. And then there is the EOG, or electrooculography, which measures the eye movement. And in REM sleep, as the name suggests, REM sleep is rapid eye movement, is characterized by rapid eye movement patterns. So, as I said, there's slow wave and there's REM. So, slow wave sleep is your deep sleep. So, it usually lasts between 70 to 90 minutes and takes place during the first hours of the night. Slow wave is considered important for memory consolidation, declarative memory, and the recovery of brain from daily activities. So, this is where you really just rest. You're not brain's not thinking, your body just needs to sit down, not do anything and rest. So, delta wave activity correlates with slow wave deep sleep. So, when there's a lot of delta waves, you're usually in their deep sleep. So, during deep sleep, secretions of various hormones are happening, like renin, growth hormone, prolactin, and this correlates positively with delta wave activity. Homeostatic functions, especially thermoregulation, like controlling your heat, like how hot or cold your body is, occur normally during non REM sleep, but not during REM sleep. Dreaming may also occur during slow wave sleep, so not REM sleep, the rapid eye movement sleep, is usually where dreaming happens, but you can still dream during the deep sleep. Diets very low in carbohydrates, such as a ketogenic diet, have been known to increase the amount of delta wave activity and slow wave sleep in healthy individuals. So, if you are into the keto diet or whatever, you might get more deep sleep. So, there are some problems associated with slow wave or deep sleep. These are mostly ones that cause you to not wake up very easily. So, bedwetting is one of these. It's also known as nocturnal enuresis, or NE, and it is an involuntary urination while asleep. So, you're just peeing the bed. That's basically all it is. Then there is also night terrors, which are also called sleep terrors, and it is a sleep disorder caused feelings of panic or dread and typically occur during the first hours of stage 3 to 4 non-rapid eye movement or NREM movement. And then there is sleepwalking. It's a state of low consciousness with a performance of activities that are usually performed during a state of full consciousness. So this sleepwalking kind of also comes into the sleep-related eating disorders. So there are some sleep-related eating disorders, like I said, that are where an individual will sleepwalk and seek out food and then will eat and not have a memory of the events in the morning. So you can do a lot of stuff sleepwalking and be in a very deep sleep and not even know what you're doing. So there is also sleep deprivation. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you'll become deprived of sleep. Sleep deprivation, as I said. It is also known as sleep insufficiency or sleeplessness, and the condition of not having adequate duration or quality of sleep to support decent alertness, performance, and health. This can either be chronic or acute and may vary widely in severity. So just because you are sleeping for like 8 hours, if you are waking up quite a bit through the night, then you are not technically getting a good sleep because you're not going through all the stages. Sleep deprivation is common as it affects about 1/3 of the population. So 1 in 3 people probably are not getting enough sleep. Insufficient sleep has been linked to weight gain, high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, heart disease, and strokes. It can also lead to high anxiety, irritability, erratic behavior, poor cognitive functioning, and performance in psychotic episodes. So, really, any of those are possible. It's not like you're going to have all of those, but just get enough sleep if you can. Sleep deprivation can have some of the same hazardous effects as being drunk. So, people who drove after being awake for 17 to 19 hours actually performed worse than those with a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. So, in some instances, I wouldn't say it's better to drink, but sometimes it's worse to be sleepless or sleep deprived. So, there have been quite a few people that, like, I guess insomniacs like that have gone without sleeping for a while. There have been some long periods without sleep, like many, many days. So we're going to look at Randy Gardner first, which we have a picture here of him. So he holds the scientifically documented record for the longest period of time a human being intentionally gone without sleep, not using stimulants of any kind. So he has just stayed awake. He is just built different and was able to stay awake this long. Now, I will say this. There have been other people that have been up for, I guess, longer. But this one is, like I said, the scientifically documented record. So he was awake for 264 hours or 11 days straight. Then there's Maureen Weston, which holds the Guinness Book of World Records at 449 hours, which is 18 days and 17 hours. And she did this because she was in a rocking chair marathon. Go figure. So, like I said there, that one is technically not scientifically, I guess, documented like the Randy Gardner one, but Guinness Book of World Records, I mean, it's pretty believable. So there have been claims, like I said, of total sleep deprivation lasting years, but none are scientifically verified. So even though these people say like, oh, I haven't, like this person hasn't slept for a year, they could have also been taking like micro naps or something like that. Like they could have been sleep at times when they didn't even know. So going into that like micro nap thing, we're going to go into micro sleep. So First off, I just wanted to show our chin strap penguin up here at the very top. We did do a episode on penguins a while back, and we looked at the chin strap penguin a little bit. And one of the cool things about them is that they can sleep over 10,000 times a day for just 4 seconds at a time. They are like the kings of microsleep, okay? So, what is microsleep? It is a sudden, temporary episode of sleep or drowsiness in which may last for a few seconds, where an individual fails to respond to some sensory input and becomes unconscious. So, basically, you're just awake and then you fall asleep for a second and then you, like, whenever people are nodding off? That's basically what it is, okay? So microsleeps may manifest as droopy eyes, slow eyelid closure, or head nodding. So if you are like nodding your head a lot, like just sleep, sleep, then you could be doing through microsleep a little bit. It is extremely dangerous because when it occurs in situations that demand constant alertness, such as, let's say, driving a motor vehicle or working heavy machinery, then it becomes very dangerous if you, for 1 second, or a couple seconds, I guess, you are totally asleep and a lot of stuff can happen. People who experience microsleeps often remain unaware of them, instead believing themselves to be awake the whole time, or to have temporarily lost focus. This is one thing that I think my father has gone through microsleep quite a bit, because he's the type that you could be talking to him and then all of a sudden he's snoring, and then you're like, "Hey, like wake up," and he's like, "What? I was awake the whole time," kind of thing. He's pulled that quite often. So, individuals who are not sleep deprived or tired can also experience microsleeps during monotonous tasks. So, stuff that you don't really have to think so much about and you've done like a lot. Like, I don't know. I guess you could like playing on a computer and stuff like that. Like there's at points where I sat there, I'm like, I could have been doing something that like was not as hard to do, like playing Minecraft or something like that. There's been times where I sat there playing Minecraft late at night and I could have microslept. So then, after we got through the deep sleep, there we are going to look at REM sleep. So this is the rapid eye movement sleep and the sleep that is more known to have dreams. So, like I said, characterized by random rapid eye movement. The heart rate is variable at this time and it is known to increase during REM sleep. The core body and brain temperature increases during REM sleep, and the skin temperature decreases to its lowest value. So your skin will get very, very cold when you're sleeping in REM. Consequently, hot or cold environmental temperatures can reduce the proportion of REM sleep as well as the amount of total sleep. So, if I guess your body is not really taking care of your skin temperature, if you are in a very, very cold environment and then your skin like starts getting really cold, then you might wake up. So, you're not really getting that great of sleep whenever your body is switching temperatures, and then also your environmental temperature is not great. So REM sleep occurs 4 times in 7 hours sleep. That's like an around 4 times. It doesn't have to be 4 times. I mean, quite possibly you could go up to 5. REM sleep may favor the preservation of certain types of memories, like spatial memories, emotional memories, stuff like that specifically, but memories in general. So, since we are talking about REM sleep, okay, we should probably talk about dreams. So, these are very elusive and are mostly unpredictable. First person experiences which seem logical and realistic to the dreamer when you're like the dreams in progress, but there are frequently bizarre, irrational, or surreal qualities that become apparent when assessing after like waking up. So, like when you're in the dream, you could be having a dream that possibly you're a superhero or something like that, like you're Superman and you're flying around and it makes perfect sense in the dream. And then you wake up and it's like, wow, I was dumb thinking that was real. Like people can't fly or something like that. Humans spend about 2 hours dreaming per a night, and each dream lasts between 5 and 20 minutes, although the dreamer may perceive the dream being much longer. Like, you might think that you are asleep for hours or something like that. If you fall asleep and you get in a dream, but when you wake up, it could only be, like we said, 5 to 10, 20 minutes. Dreams tend to rapidly fade from memory after waking. That is why most people, well, some people will keep a dream journal. So the best time to write down your dream is right after you had it. So people will keep a dream journal, and then right whenever they wake up, they will just pick up the journal, write down what they remember from it, and it makes it a little bit more clear to you. And also you can remember it for longer. So, since we are talking about dreams, we should probably talk about lucid dreams, the more fun dreams. So, lucid dreams is a type of dream in which the dreamer becomes aware that they are dreaming while they are dreaming. And this is where the fun begins, okay? Because during a lucid dream, the dreamer may gain some amount of control over the dream character's narrative or environment. You can control what happens sometimes, or I guess people in the dream. And it's been suggested that those who suffer from nightmares could benefit from the ability to be aware that they are dreaming. And studies performed in 2006 showed that the lucid dreaming therapy treatment was successful in reducing nightmare frequencies. Which, that does make sense. If you knew you're in a nightmare and you could lucid dream and control the nightmare, you could make it from a nightmare to a very nice dream. So, I think back to whenever Nightmare on Elm Street, because I think at one point in Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the movies, it might have been Dream Warrior, I can't remember, but they got to the point where they could kind of control their dreams a little bit and fight Freddy Krueger. But it would be pretty cool if you didn't really have to worry about nightmares that much. If you just knew it was a dream, and then you could take control of it and make it to something better. That sounds pretty cool. So, since we are talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, and this is kind of the reason why I did this episode, this educational video, and also I decided to do it here during the October months, we are going to talk about nightmares with our wonderful bladed hand Freddy Krueger. So, nightmares are also known as bad dreams and are unpleasant dreams that can cause a strong emotional response from the mind. Typically, this is fear, but also can be despair, anxiety, disgust, or sadness. Basically, any of the bad emotions or feelings or whatever, and that's what nightmares can do to you. So, after a nightmare, a person will often awake in a state of distress or fear or like anything like that, and may be unable to return to sleep for a short period of time because you were just scared, awake basically. And who'd want to go back to sleep whenever they are like, what if I go back to that nightmare? What if I go back to sleep and Freddy Krueger's there or something? So there are reoccurring nightmares which may require medical help as they can interfere with sleeping patterns and causing insomnia because you do not want to go to sleep because you know you're going to go back to the nightmare. And nightmares can have physical causes such as sleeping in an uncomfortable position or having a fever, psychological causes such as stress or anxiety. I have heard of what they call a fever dream, which is, I guess, a dream that you have while you have a fever, which usually is either really, really weird or is just straight up nightmare like we talked about here. Sometimes eating before sleep can cause an increase in the body's metabolism and brain activity, which will cause potential stimulus for nightmares. So, I guess make sure you're sleeping in a good position, which I'll be honest with you, I didn't really look up what positions were good to sleep in. I usually sleep on my, I think, left side. Yeah, I usually sleep on my left side. And I usually don't eat right before I go to bed. So I don't usually have nightmares. But I also have trouble remembering my dreams. So, since we're talking about nightmares, I guess it would be good to also talk about sleep paralysis. because this is kind of akin to a nightmare. So, sleep paralysis is a state during waking up or falling asleep in which a person is conscious but in a complete state of full body paralysis. So, we talked about whenever you are sleeping, your body kind of tells your muscles to not do anything, because if not, while you're dreaming or having a nightmare, your body would like flail around. You'd probably get up and walk around, stuff like that. So your body is still doing the full body paralysis thing, but you are conscious and you can't move, which is really, really terrifying. During an episode, the person may hallucinate, hear, feel, or see things that are not there, and which often result in fear because you can't move. Sometimes you can't look at them or see them or anything like that. These episodes generally last no more than a few minutes, but it can be reoccurring multiple times or also be a single episode. So, could be terrible, could be kind of bad. And between 8% to 50% of people experience sleep paralysis at some point during their lifetimes. And it's believed to have played a role in the creation of stories about alien abductions and other paranormal events. So, I had heard about sleep paralysis. I had never really had an episode of sleep paralysis until I think it was a couple of years ago. And I was sitting in bed. And I was on my side, like usual, and I couldn't move. Everything I was doing, my brain was telling my body to move like my toes, or move my arms, or do anything, move your head, or I don't know, say something. But my body would not move at all, like we discussed here. And I heard and felt a heavy breathing on the back of my neck. And it sounded like and felt like a fairly large animal was right behind the back of my neck, breathing on me. And I could not do anything about that until finally my body went back to sleep. That was terrifying, okay? That's the only time I've had sleep paralysis. But just because of that, I don't want to have it ever again if I could. And I do have a funny story that's not really my story. It's one of my friends that has sleep paralysis fairly often. Like, not every night or anything like that, but I mean, it's enough that he talks about it quite often. But his sleep paralysis demon, he calls it, or whatever, kind of like mine was some sort of large animal that I couldn't see behind me. His sleep paralysis demon is Bill Clinton. Apparently, he said that one time when he had sleep paralysis, or I guess multiple times, he looked at the foot of his bed and he saw Bill Clinton there, which is pretty hilarious because I sat there, I'm like, what would be like scary about just seeing Bill Clinton at the back of your, like the foot of your bed? But then again, why would Bill Clinton be at the foot of your bed? That would be kind of weird and possibly terrifying. So that was just one of those kind of fun stories, like kind of funny ones there. So, because of, let's say, nightmares, and if you're kind of afraid of sleep paralysis, stuff like that, you might lead to some sort of insomnia. Or, I mean, you could also possibly just have a disorder that causes it hard to go to sleep. So, insomnia is also known as sleeplessness, and it is a sleeping disorder caused by difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep for as long as desired. So insomnia is typically followed by daytime sleepiness, low energy, irritability, and a depressed mood. Again, stuff like we were talking about sleep deprivation, it's like that, just not getting enough sleep. Insomnia can be short-term, lasting for days or weeks, or long-term, lasting for more than a month. Sleep hygiene and lifestyle changes are typically the first treatment for insomnia, and constant bedtime, a quiet, dark room, exposure to sunlight during the day, and regular exercise are good things you can do to kind of treat insomnia. So, consistent bedtime is kind of like a no-brainer. If you fall asleep at the same time every single day or night, then you know when you need to wake up when you need to go to sleep. It's just easier on your body. A quiet and dark room, not as much stuff to, like, I guess, bother you. I have problems if there's any light in a room. So exposure to sunlight during the day or any light at all would make it a little harder for me. And if you, I guess, exercise or whatever, just being healthy in general, possibly wearing yourself out would be helpful for you to get to sleep, I guess, the next night. So, if you cannot get over all the insomnia, then there also is fatal insomnia, which, as you can guess, is bad things happening because you can't sleep. So, fatal insomnia is an extremely rare neurodegenerative prion disease that results in trouble sleeping as its a hallmark symptom. So, it's caused by a mutation in the PRNP gene, and I'm not going to go super in depth to that. It's a gene that mutates to make it harder for you to sleep. And the problems with sleeping typically start out gradually and worsen over time. So it might start out that, like, oh, you wake up a few hours a night, to, oh, you only sleep for half the night, to, oh, I can't sleep at all. And eventually the patient will succumb to total insomnia where they don't sleep at all, and most often leading to other symptoms such as speech problems, coordination problems, and dementia. So it results in death within a few months to a few years, and there is no known disease-modifying treatment. There's really no cure for it. So, as sad as it is, if you have fatal insomnia and you don't sleep at all, eventually you're going to die because you really, really do need sleep. Like, it's talked there, speech problems, coordination problems, dementia. Like, we talked about memory consolidation being in sleeping and stuff like that. Like, it helps you consolidate your memories. So if you don't consolidate your memories, you're not going to remember anything. So kind of a scary thing to think about, because it could, like it said, it would not just all of a sudden happen. It would be gradually worsening over time. So since we are going over all that, I'm sure you're probably thinking, like, what are the stages of sleep? Because we talked about deep sleep and then also in REM sleep or non-REM sleep, and then really how long should you sleep? So first we'll go over the stages for sleep. So N1 or non-REM stage 1. So N1 is just non-stage 1 and N2 is going to be non-stage 2. Then also if you look, I guess, behind me, if I just move myself over, it's black right now, so you can't really see it as well. But if you look just right where I was, you can see, like, there is NREM 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, REM, and brief waking. So, first, N1 is when the person is drowsy or awake to falling asleep. So, basically, right before you go to sleep, you're feeling tired or something like that. You're not quite asleep yet, but that is N1. The brain waves and muscle activity start to decrease at this stage. You're trying to fall asleep. Then N2 is when the person experiences a light sleep. Like, you're not quite fully asleep. You could easily be woken up by other stuff. But eye movement has stopped by this time. Brain wave frequency and muscle tone is decreased. And the heart rate and body temperature are also going down at this time. Then we have N3 or even N4, which are the most difficult stages to be awakened from. And every part of the body is now relaxed. Breathing and blood pressure and body temperature are reduced at this time. Then, after all of that, you are finally to REM sleep, or the random eye movement, where most of the dreaming is occurring. The brain is awake at this time, but the body is paralyzed. So, what is the length of sleep that you need? The standard figure given for the average length of sleep in a sleep cycle for an adult man is 90 minutes. That's one cycle. In infants, the cycle lasts between 50 to 60 minutes. The average length increased as the humans grow into adulthood. In cats, on the other hand, the sleep cycle lasts between around 30 minutes, though it is about 12 minutes in rats and up to 120 minutes in elephants. A 7 to 8 hour sleep probably includes 5 cycles. So, as we said there, an adult man, 90 minutes per cycle. So, that would be about 7 to 8 hours, which would be 5 cycles. The middle two of which tend to be longer than the first and the fourth. REM takes up more of the cycle as the night goes on. So you get more REM sleep as you sleep longer. So we kind of talked a little bit about the length of sleep, but let's talk about the actual recommended sleep duration for like how old you are and stuff. So newborns 0 to 3 months usually sleep around 14 to 17 hours, a large chunk of the day. Infants from 4 to 11 months are 12 to 15 hours. So they are going down a little bit. Toddlers 1 to 2 years, 11 to 14, still down a little bit. Preschoolers 3 to 4 years, 10 to 13. School-age children from 5 to 12 years are 9 to 11 hours. Teenagers from 13 to 17 are usually 8 to 10 hours. And then adults from 18 to 64, usually around 7 to 9 hours, whereas older adults, older than 65, are around 7 to 8 hours. So when you're a newborn, you usually try to get as much sleep as possible, whereas as you get older, you slowly don't need as much sleep. You still want to try to get like the 8-hour mark, I guess, or possibly 7 hours, but it becomes kind of less imperative to get more sleep. So, if you are not getting enough sleep, I guess this should be next to the sleep deprived thing. There is a sleep debt or a sleep deficit. So the cumulative effect of not getting enough sleep. So like if you have multiple days in a row not been getting enough sleep. So like one day you only get 5 hours of sleep. The next day you only get 5 hours of sleep. So if you want 8 hours of sleep, then you are down 6 hours, a deficit, a sleep debt of 6 hours. A large sleep debt may lead to mental or physical fatigue and can adversely affect one's mood, energy, and the ability to think clearly. There are 2 kinds of sleep debt: the result of partial sleep deprivation and total sleep deprivation. So partial is when a person or a lab animal, I guess, sleeps too little for several days in a week. Kind of like I said in our example there, you might only sleep 5 days every day for a week. But there is total when the subject is kept awake for at least 24 hours, a whole day. And of course, the total is much worse because you're getting no sleep compared to a little sleep. Daily sleep duration of 5 hours or less, which amounts to a sleep deficit of like 2 hours per day, during weekends correlates with a 52% higher mortality rate, and is compared to a control group who slept to 7 hours. So if you are getting 2 less hours a day, if you're going to sleep only 5 hours, then there is a 52% higher mortality rate, death rate. So it is in your best interest to try to get the 7 hours that you're supposed to. 7, 8 hours, maybe not much more than that, because it can hurt you if you sleep too much. But you want to at least probably get to the 7-hour mark. So, one way that you can try to, I guess, help your sleep deficit or make up time is through naps. So, naps are short periods of sleep that one might take during the daytime, often in order to get the necessary amount of rest. It's often associated with childhood, but around 1/3 of American adults partake in it daily. So just because you're an adult does not mean you cannot take naps. Optimal nap duration is around 10 to 20 minutes. Because researchers have proven that it takes at least 30 minutes to enter low wave sleep, the deepest period of sleep, and napping too long, you enter the slow wave cycles, which can make it difficult to awake from and leave one feeling unrested. So, if it's really not good, I guess, to sleep for just 30 minutes, since you'll just get into the deep sleep, and when you wake up, like we said, you'll feel probably even worse because you're just in a fairly good place of sleep and you had literally just woken up when you got there. So 10-20 minutes, little cat nap won't hurt. So the circadian clock is kind of your sleep like cycle, I guess, and sleep timing depends greatly on hormonal signals from the circadian clock called process C. Process C counteracts the homeostatic drive for sleep during the day and augments it at night. So the pineal gland releases the hormone melatonin at night. This is kind of what gets you to go to sleep or start to go to sleep. The circadian rhythm exerts some influence on the nighttime secretions of growth hormones. The internal circadian clock is profoundly influenced by changes in light, since these are its main cues about what time it is. So, exposure to even small amounts of light during the night can suppress melatonin secretions and increase body temperature and awakeness. So, kind of like we were saying before, if you have any amount of light or something like that, it's probably better for you to sleep in a room that is almost completely dark. So, one problem with this is artificial light, because we have, as humans, have made a lot of things that cause artificial light. So, think about your computer screen. If you have a night light, if you have a TV, an aquarium, just anything, a phone, okay? A phone's a big one. Anything that can put off light, especially blue light, can cause you to sleep less, or I guess stop the secretion of melatonin for a little while. The use of artificial light is substantially altered the humanity's sleep patterns. Common sources include outdoor lighting, screens from digital devices, smartphones, televisions, which emit large amounts of blue light. Blue light is a form of light typically associated with daytime. This disrupts the release of the hormone melatonin needed to regulate the sleep schedule, like I said. So, this is something that I had heard before, and I was not 100% sure without doing a little bit of research into it. But there is polyphasic sleep, which is the system of sleep during multiple periods over the course of 24 hours, in contrast to monophasic sleep, where you have a single period of sleep within 24 hours. So, this polyphasic is basically sleeping multiple times a day for shorter periods, whereas monophasic is sleeping for the just 7 to 9 hours that I guess we are now doing. Biphasic sleep is a pattern of sleep in which it is divided in two segments. So think like 2 4-hour segments or something like that. Historically, first sleep and second sleep are involved, the two phases are separated by about an hour of awakeness. So there would be, like, let's say 4 hour sleep, and then you would be up for an hour or so, and then you would go back to sleep. That's kind of historical thing that kind of used to happen. Then there is a thing called a single nap or siesta, which is a nap that is taken in the early afternoon after the midday meal. So that's another way, like the biphasic sleep. Then, in a given 14-hour period of darkness in experimental conditions, humans tend toward a bimodal sleep and two sleep periods concentrated at the beginning and at the end of the dark time. So, right whenever it gets dark, you might sleep for, like I said, 4 hours, something like that, and then you'll have an hour or so in between, and then you'll sleep for another 4 hours, basically until the sun rises. Which apparently this is something that used to happen before the Industrial Revolution. That's what they talk about, at least in the papers I was reading. And it kind of makes sense. Now, it's one of those things where, like, I think I tried for a couple days to kind of do that because I'm like, I heard it's good for you, but I really could not do it without really forcing myself. I don't know if I'd be able to do it. So, since we were talking about sleep, There are some drugs you can take. I know, of course, you probably know melatonin already. People take melatonin a lot. But there are other drugs that affect sleep. So, some of these drugs influence sleep are known as hypnotics. So, Ambien, Benadryl, alcohol, melatonin, cannabis, and some opioids, such as morphine, codeine, heroin, and oxycodone. Then there are GHBs, which are capable of producing high quality sleep that is indistinguishable from natural sleep in humans. So, that's actually pretty cool, especially if it's helpful for, I guess, people that are insomniacs or whatever. Then there are stimulants which inhibit sleep. These can be caffeine, so like in your soda, coffees, energy drinks, stuff like that. Amphetamine, methamphetamine, cocaine, stuff like that can really stop you from sleeping. And then consuming high amounts of stimulant caffeine can result in interrupting sleep patterns and sometimes sleep deprivation. This vicious cycle can result in drowsiness, which can then result in a higher consumption of caffeine in order to stay awake for the next day. So, imagine you took some caffeine at night. So, you took some caffeine at night, you couldn't really sleep very well, and then the next day comes around and you need to stay awake. So, you take more caffeine. Then, whenever I guess it gets to like nighttime the next day, you have taken so much caffeine through the day, you can't sleep. And it's just a continuous cycle of like, oh, I can't sleep right now. I have to take caffeine. And then whenever you can sleep, you have taken so much caffeine that you can't go to sleep. It's a vicious cycle. So there are some diets that can affect your sleep. So there are mixed micronutrients and macronutrients that are needed to produce a quality sleep. A varied diet containing fresh fruits and vegetables, low saturated fat, and whole grains may be optimal for individuals seeking an improved sleep schedule. Kind of like we said, a mix of micro and macronutrients. So if you ate a varied, like fresh fruits, vegetables, low saturated fats, whole grains, you're going to be getting a lot of varied nutrients. A high carbohydrate diet promotes a shorter onset to sleep and a longer duration of sleep than high fat diets. So, high carbohydrate could be pretty good. There have also been 2 studies that have indicated a benefit of tart cherry juice for insomnia or for increasing sleep efficiency as well as total sleep time. So, those are a few things you can do to kind of help out sleeping. So, I think it's kind of a no-brainer why sleep is important. We've kind of talked about all this, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, first off, if you don't sleep, you die. So, I mean, sleep's pretty important not to die. But there are other things. We've already talked about how it's important for memory consolidation and also the recovery of the brain after daily activities. So, just a nice rest where your brain can kind of just shut down for a little while and just rest. Sleep is also necessary to repair cellular damage caused by reactive oxygen species and DNA damage. We have also talked about oxygen a little bit when we talked about the great oxygenation event, where oxygen killed like a good portion of the life on Earth. So we talked about reactive oxygen species in there, but it can damage DNA and stuff like that. So while you're sleeping, your cells are being repaired. And if you don't sleep, they don't really get it repaired. During long-term sleep deprivation, cellular damage aggregates up to a tipping point that triggers cellular degradation and apoptosis. Apoptosis is when your cells are basically killing themselves. So if you don't sleep enough, then your cells just start dying. The sleeping brain has been known to remove metabolic products, like end products, at faster rates than during being awake by increasing the flow of cerebrospinal fluid during sleep. So, if you are not sleeping or whatever, these things are going to slowly build up in your brain. And I mean, that does not sound good having like metabolic end products just like slowly building up in your brain. Those definitely need to be removed. Some of them can be like toxic and stuff like that. or at least toxic in large amounts. Sleep may facilitate the synthesis of molecules that help repair and protect the brain from metabolic end products generated during waking. So, like we said there, whatever, we've already talked about how if you don't get enough sleep, it can lead to dementia, which I guess is kind of linked to the synthesis of molecules that help repair and protect the brain. If you are not sleeping and it's not making these molecules, then it hurts your brain, which can lead to dementia. So, I think that is definitely enough to say you just need to sleep enough. If you don't sleep enough, then slowly things are going to build up, and the longer you don't get enough sleep, the worse it's going to get. So I think it's very, very, very important that you get enough sleep. I think right now I definitely do need to take a nap because I did not get enough sleep last night. But I usually get enough sleep anyway, so I mean, I'm not super behind or anything like that. If anything, I'm down by like an hour, which isn't terrible in the grand scheme of things. Plus, I got to talk a little bit about Nightmare on Elm Street during this. I'm definitely going to probably have to do a rewatch of like at least the first Nightmare on Elm Street. They really get weird after a while, so I don't need to watch all of them. But still a good series. And I hope you did enjoy that. I hope you did agree with me that this was kind of fit for the like Halloween season, I guess, or whatever, the October season, because Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the more better known things. Like I had some other ideas. I thought about doing one on like vampire bats and like different stuff like that. I thought about doing one that was like on like vampire bats and like different blood sucking like animals, and then also I know there's a disease that humans can get that's kind of called like the vampire disease or whatnot. So I kind of started doing one on that, but then I sat there and I'm like, I'm like, this is cool and all. Like I do want to do this at some point, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, I kind of want to do sleep because like I said before, I kind of been interested in sleep for a long time and have really looked into the REM cycle and stuff like that. And I'm like, this would be pretty easy to put together. So that's why I decided that. And I'm like, well, it kind of fits in with the Nightmare on Elm Street because you die in your dreams, you die in real life, kid, kind of thing. So I'm like, yeah, I can work with that. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a good month of Spooky Month. I hope you have a good Halloween, and I hope you will join me again next month when we look at our next educational video. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. So, bye-bye.